So, season one, episode 3 of this is not financial advice. So, we've had an intro, we've spoken about trigger points in the last episode, and I think this is a nice segue on from trigger points to talk about goals.
Perfect.
So, we'll talk about a lot. So, the eagle eye amongst our viewers, if they're watching, might notice that it's not Alex with me, or something.
Alex has got better looking.
Yeah, better looking, a little bit older, and slightly more stylish. So we've got, and if you haven't listened before, I'm Liam. I'm a financial planner with Keyside Wealth Management, and
I'm Steve Jones, and I'm also a planner here at Keyside.
cool. So, like I said, we're going to talk about goals. It's such an important part of what we do and the conversations that we have with clients. And I think we touched on maybe some of the goals in the last episode when we were sort of naturally talking about the trigger points and the reasons that people would come in to see us. So I think this is a nice segue on from that. And I don't know if you just want to start by sort of talking to me a little bit about why you think goals are important in a financial plan, and maybe some sort of examples of goals that you've come across when dealing with clients.
Well, I think goals are important, not just in financial planning, in everything. And nearly everyone we speak to is goal orientated, goal driven. There's always an end point. They might not necessarily know exactly where that is. And we help them understand and put a plan together to get there. But goals, whether it's losing weight, getting fit, getting a new job, planning for a holiday, work at home, everyone has an end in mind.
Yeah,
for sure. So, I mean, for me, presently, doing the charity swim, I'm 6 weeks away from finishing that or doing it. And training's going well, but I had the end in mind that I've got to do the swim mid-September and training program to make sure I'm fit enough to get there.
Yeah, the right plan to get there. I think that point of actually having it quite specific adds so much more value to having the goal, because people might have like an idea of a goal that they want. Like, so one of my goals this year was to try and get more fit, more healthy. Thank you. And I started that out with, to be fair, it was just like, let's just get more fit, get more healthy. And it was going okay. And then I started setting myself smaller goals for the time frame.
Getting fit is so generic. It's such a wide goal. If you could hone that down and be more specific, like anything really. Yeah, more likely to achieve it.
Yeah, exactly. And then if it is something like a charity swim, where you've got sort of money being raised for it and you put it out to the public, you know exactly what that goal is, and there's a bit of motivation to get you there as well.
That's third-party responsibility. We can often be a bit too relaxed with ourselves or let ourselves off. I'm a bit tired, I'm not going to go to the gym tonight. But if you're meeting someone there, you're more likely to turn up.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. Right?
Yeah, having some accountability. That's that's definitely a big part as well of, I think, what we do. So that point of like actually having a specific goal to work towards. I read a study that said you're 42% more likely to actually achieve a goal if it's written down.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I read that or what the source is. We're just going to have to trust me in this.
Oh, that's true.
But if that point of having it written down or having that specific charity swim that you're going towards, or in my case, actually putting it into an app of like, I wanted to lose this much weight by this date. I'll put it into an app. Now it's there, it's written down, and you're much more likely to achieve it. And I think that then translates to what we do in terms of actually clients might have that idea of, I want to do this. I did talk about this one last time, but I think it's a good one, because I was having conversations with clients where before we actually put anything pen to paper, if you like, the goal was we want to put the kids through private school and give them the best education that they can have, and that was the way that they thought that was going to pan out. nothing was down on paper. We hadn't put any sort of plans in place to achieve that yet. And then just through more conversations, actually arrived at the goal is to give the children a better education than what they're currently going to be looking at in secondary school. One of the other goals was to live a more comfortable lifestyle. As the kids get bigger, have a bit more room in the house. And actually, through the conversations we had, we established that the goal, we could tie those goals into one, and actually we could move into a better catchment area where there's a school and the education that they want publicly, and it's available, and they're not going to have to pay for it. But that's then going to free up some finances to move house and get the bigger house that they want. And now we've put pen to paper, if you like. That goal is now on their cash flow plan. So we know every time we're meeting, we're having conversations of, right, where are we on track towards this goal? It's there. We're holding them accountable because we're having that meeting at least annually, at the minute probably more regularly for them. So it's like we've got a visual goal. They can see it. They can see if there's any shortfall and we're not on track to achieve it. And then we're making them consciously think about that and plan towards it.
And for that couple, the goal wasn't private education, it was a better education.
Yeah.
So they were thinking, well, we've got to pay for it, but actually opening up the conversation, and seeing different options still gets the same result, better education, but in a different way.
Yeah, in a different way. And it's those conversations of, like, I think we touched on this last time as well, like, you don't necessarily know what your goal is when you come in to see us.
Not always. No.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I had a text this morning of someone who we've kind of had a couple of conversations, and they want some financial advice. And I've just asked a couple of questions. It's very early stage, and I just asked a couple of questions of like, what's it all for, essentially. And they just had no idea. So we parked it for a bit, and then I had a text just before I came in this morning saying, I know what my goals are now. Can we crack on? And so, well, now it's worth us doing. It's worth us progressing those conversations. It's not been that long since our first conversation. It just needed them to go away and think a little bit about, well, what is it all for? So that we can make sure the advice we give is the best advice for that goal. So, can you tell me about some goals, some client goals, or scenarios and situations that you've come across recently that were interesting?
Interesting goals. A lot of them are focused, I guess, retirement, obviously, naturally, moving home. Got a client who I speak to probably a year ago. His wife wants to, her dream is to have alpacas and animals and different things like that. And so then the whole escape to the country type scenario of that TV program, they're actually going on it.
Cool.
To look for that country place because
they're going on the TV program.
Yeah.
Oh, nuts.
Because wife wants alpacas.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what for. I don't know what they do.
No.
But
they're cool. They're cool. That's all that matters. And it's a goal that she wants. So what? I don't know much about that TV program, to be fair. What?
Their estate agent takes a couple round the countryside, looking at different properties and showing them stuff that they wouldn't necessarily thought about. But their goal to move to the country from a 4-bed detached house on a housing estate, for better quality of life.
Yeah.
But putting that into reality and taking those steps to do that, and just so happens that they're jumping on the back of this TV program to do it.
That's pretty cool. It's made me think about some conversations that we had in the practice probably a couple of years ago now, and it's conversations that has then rolled out with some client meetings that I've had of actually, like, sometimes these goals that we're talking about are massive life events and life changes, and it's like you have this idea of what you want to do, but sometimes if it is a vast difference to what you've lived currently, actually trying to test that goal in some way is quite a good idea, and making that financially viable as well in terms of, so if it is, for example, if you live in a city and you think you want to move to the country and you want this big this big change in lifestyle, actually, is it worth testing that first?
Yeah, I had a client like that who wanted to, I had a client like that who wanted to move overseas.
Yeah.
Italy was his dream. So what we suggest, and this was a couple of years ago now, what we suggested is, don't sell up and move there. Go and rent a house for 6 months.
Yeah.
Test it out, see what the life's like, see if you do enjoy it, and then once you've tested it, then crack on.
Then go on.
Yeah. In the end, he didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't enjoy the winter there.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like that. That's saved so much hassle. If you packed up and moved your whole life there, if you don't enjoy it, are you going to be reluctant to go back and change that decision that you've made? Two, you're saving financially. So actually earmarking a bit of money there aside to go and be able to test it, in the long run, you probably save yourself a lot. So if you packed up and moved everything over and then you hated it and you had to pack up and move everything back, actually that's costed you more financially.
Financially, but also I think that feeling that you've failed, maybe.
Yeah.
That he's told all his mates, I'm moving to Italy.
Yeah.
And then doesn't like it, comes home, and there's that feeling that, not succeeded, maybe, I don't know. Whereas what he did, I'm thinking about moving to Italy, I'm going to test it out.
Yeah.
Came back, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And you don't feel as though personally you've failed.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Is like, especially because you've said there, like retirement is often a big goal in people's lives, because ultimately we work, save, and that's kind of life. But at some point in life, we don't really doing that anymore. And whatever retirement looks like is so different for so many different people. But ultimately, that's a big chunk of our life where we're not earning money. So we need to have the money there to be able to go off and live that lifestyle that we want to live. When you're talking to someone who's younger and retirement's 20, 30 years away from what we're talking about,
or even 40 plus years away.
Yeah, exactly. When it's that far away, it's important we have those conversations, and there's probably 5, 10 different goals potentially that they've got in mind between then. It might just be to go traveling, it might be a big holiday, have kids, buy a house, whatever that is. It can make it quite hard for them to think about that goal that's 20, 30,
too far away.
Years away. It's too far away. But that point of what you kind of touched on there in that story is like, goal it's not set in stone. It's not like you have to achieve this, and if you don't achieve it, you failed, or we're not going to hold it against you. So you told me 40 years ago that we're going to do this in retirement, and now you're doing something different. It's just having something to work towards is better than having nothing to work towards.
I have to run on.
Yeah. Structure. Yeah. Having that North Star, if you like, to guide ultimately you in life, what you want to do, and the boring stuff, which is the financial advice, which, like we say, this is not financial advice.
No.
But it is important for us to understand why those goals, what are those goals? Like, what are we working towards to make sure advice that we're giving is the right advice?
And those goals are going to be fluid and flexible, and forever changing. Life events happen. It changes people's perspective on what's important all the time, which can then affect, changing goals completely. Yeah. So many of clients that are my age, in their 50s, Sniper Alley. You hear of a good mate passing away or having a serious illness, and you reflect on your own life and go, actually, why am I working so hard to achieve this goal when actually work less. Things change.
Yeah, and it does impact the advice. I just had a meeting last week, I think, with a lady who's just still a bit of a way off retirement, but the reality is now all the other goals of move house, have children, have these holidays with the children, give the children a comfortable lifestyle. All of those goals have now happened, and we're kind of now we're honing in on retirement is the only big goal left to work towards, and we're still a long way off that goal is a little bit vague in terms of we think it's going to be at this time. We think we're going to need this much to live, but we're not into the specifics of year one we're going to do a cruise, or year one we're going to go and travel North America. We're not quite at that point yet. We're just honing in on the goal a little bit. But I think the reason it's so important to understand the goals for the financial advice side is actually for her now, because those goals have been passed, every part of the budget that's available is either to use now to enjoy life now or towards that goal. Whereas I had another meeting last week with someone who's in a different stage of life and his kids are younger. So there's been some changes in circumstance, which has meant a goal we were working towards in about 5 years could now be possible in the next year or so.
Brilliant.
Which is great. And it's we're talking about upsizing, getting a bigger house potentially, or there is a bit of a conversation around buying some land and actually doing a self-build. Both, it's really about lifestyle and having more land and more space available for the kids as they grow.
Yeah, definitely.
And for him, retirement is one of the goals we're talking about, but it's further away and we're planning towards it. There's a little bit of anxiety there in terms of the conversations we have, I think, in terms of, am I doing enough towards that retirement goal?
Yeah.
But our conversations are, well, yes, that is something we need to work towards, and we are doing it. But your situation is going to change. This short-term goal, once we've achieved this, then life changes as the business grows, as various things. The kids get bigger, they might cost less. You can tell me if that's possible. They cost more.
Less problems, just more expensive.
Okay, yeah. So that's not filling me with hope. But so as life changes, situations change, and your goals change, and some of them we've already achieved, then we can pivot
Totally
what we're doing in terms of the plan. And ultimately the advice changes. So for him at the minute, the advice is, because that goal is now short term, we don't want to be doing any investing with the money that we've got. Some of it we do. We're doing some regular investing towards retirement. We're still carrying on with that plan. But with the cash savings, it's about just maximising the highest interest we can get and making sure it's readily accessible. So if a plot of land comes up or their dream home comes up, you're ready and able just to go ahead with that short term goal.
I had a client yesterday who was saying that for blimey, 20 or so years, they'd always planned to do a big holiday to Australia on his 60th birthday, which is next summer. Work's changed, contracting, different things. It means they're going to have a gap in their work diary at Christmas this year. Now, they've only shifted the holiday, dream holiday, 6 months earlier, but that whole, it was meant to be on our 60th birthday, so 59 and a half. I mean, you've not really moved the goalpost that much, but circumstances meant that they're now doing a 2-month holiday, Australia and Vietnam and all over the place. Yeah, and you're going to love it.
Yeah, so I think you said this to the team actually. It reminds me of that analogy of the pilot. So they have their destination, they know where they're going, they have an idea of the route they're going to take.
Storms happen, winds happen. It takes you off course, and then you get them back on course, and then that's the conversation around finances as well. Life happens, life changes, and people maybe lose a job, get re-employed, start a business. As long as we can keep them on track.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Then we can get
Yeah.
them. And that, start business is a good one actually. And that ties in with that same example I was just talking about is he's in the early stages of starting a business. And it's like, well, that was a big goal. Going from an employed life to starting a business, it's a different mindset. It's a different challenge. And in the early stages of starting a business, it can feel like you're working all the hours under the sun and potentially for little reward or less reward than you were getting in an employed life. And it's a completely different situation to be in. And in the early stages of starting a business, quite often you need to be reinvesting profits to grow the business. And that's another example of actually we've got these goals, but we don't panic if we're not. When we do this, we do the cash flow plan, which is like a nice visual way of mapping out those goals. I'm going to ask you a question about this in a minute, but we do. So we'll build a cash flow plan for the client. Once we understand the client's goals, we understand their current situation, so we can put in all the financial information. We know what we're trying to work towards. It then visually maps out, for those who don't know, it visually maps out how far we are on track for that. So you've got colours, you've got the sources of income, you know what we're working towards. Ultimately, if we're not on track to achieve the goal, we can see it's a big red bars there. And it's really useful to have that, to know if you're already on track to achieve it, happy days. If we're not, then what advice can we give to help you get there? And sometimes I think those scenarios, it can be a bit nervy, thinking, well, I'm not on track to live the retirement I want. But actually putting that into perspective, well, you're in the early stages of starting a business. You've got 2 young children. You're working towards this goal of
reality.
This is reality. And times will change, and we can show actually in 5 years, once this goal is achieved and business has grown a bit, then we can change the plans. And
which then goes right back to your point of if they're written down, they're more likely to be achieved. Having the cash flow model is writing it down, but also very visual with graphs, etc. So you can see it. Got a document there. It can change. It's taking you in the right direction.
And we can test those different scenarios. Which is good. I had a meeting recently with a lady who's again, it's retirement is the goal there, and I don't want us to feel like that's all we talk about at that time, because there's a lot of other things we do talk about, but like we say, that's a big part of life, and for many people that is something that becomes more pressing, especially as you get into the sort of sniper alley stages of life. And not saying that she is in the sniper alley stages of life, but anyway, we had with the conversation we had, and for her, it was just like a massive unknown of like, I've been working, I've got this, I've got various different pensions, and I've got some savings here, and I've got some credit cards here, and it's like, I just don't know, like, one, what to do, I don't know where to start, and two, I don't know if I'm going to be able to retire, when I'm going to be able to retire.
Daunting, overwhelming, therefore you don't take action.
Because it feels head in the sand, and then you don't have any goal, you haven't got a goal written down to work towards, so it's easy just to carry on doing what you're doing. Anyway, we went through her meeting, we did a cash flow plan, and that was what she found arguably most valuable. And that's not me putting words into her mouth, she did email me after to say, because there was all that unknown, and I was able to actually say, to be honest, even without our advice, you're on track to do everything that you said you want to do. All of the goals we spoke about, even if you just carry on doing what you're doing and don't proceed with anything I tell you.
But having that reassurance, that thumbs up, that she is on track.
It's a massive relief. And actually, so you could go away and just carry on as you are, and you're all set to achieve the goals you want to achieve. But if we do this, this, and this, and talk through the advice and why it's the right advice and how we might save some tax, you could be doing this. And it was like, then we can build in, well, what if instead of spending X amount on holidays a year in retirement, you spend Y? we can test that, and I can show actually you can do that. And she might not want to do that. She might not end up doing that, but at least she knows she can. And ultimately, if she doesn't, with the right advice, there's going to be more left to the kids, which is a big part of people's goals as well, maximising what's left to the next generation.
Yeah, people would favour their family rather than the tax man.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's not even that, but yeah, there's those cases of you want to pay less tax, but one of the big conversations me and Alex had in a meeting last week was around inheritance tax, and it wasn't because he didn't want to pay inheritance tax. It was he didn't want the business to have to close because of inheritance tax. So because we're getting into the boring financial advice stuff, you can trust me to do that. But because there's been changes, ultimately, if you're running a business, a lot of businesses that previously wouldn't have been subject to inheritance tax are now going to be subject to inheritance tax.
Yeah. And for most business owners, they have, especially sort of SMEs, they have that kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
That they're providing lifestyles and jobs for X number of people and their families, and so something happens to the business, and then all those people and families are out of work.
Yeah,
there's a responsibility for that. So they want to look after people.
Exactly.
So it's not just go pay its tax; it's looking after your fellow human being.
It's all the other sides of it. Yeah, exactly. And that's their legacy. There's the financial legacy that they leave for their family, but there's the broader legacy of, like you say, you've got a business that you've built from the ground up potentially, that you've worked hard to grow, and people's livelihoods are dependent on that. And so,
not just your own as a business owner, or your employees and their families.
Yeah, exactly. And that so that conversation we had, that's exactly the conversation we had last week. It was like, it's not necessarily about the tax, but it is, because if we don't figure out how to reduce that tax, the business will have to be sold to pay it. And actually, it's sat in the meeting there and then, the Alex managed to save about £1 million in tax before we even gone away and done put the advice together. Just because we get a bit excited and start putting some ideas down. But on that cash flow plan, then this was the question I was going to ask you, because I noticed you've been advising for a while.
Yes.
And you've been advising before cash flow plans and probably formed part of a good financial advice.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a bit about the difference from any differences you noticed from when you were advising clients without cash flow plans to now actually advising clients with them?
Definitely. Well, it brings it round to this conversation about goals. It focuses people so much more on what are we doing it for? Yeah. Why are we doing it? Putting a plan together, rather than just throwing money into a hole and keeping your fingers crossed that it's going to be big enough later down the line.
Yeah.
So much more engaging with clients. Yeah. And really, like any coach, mentor in whatever lifestyle, occupation, if you've got the plan that people can see and buy into, ultimately it's their own, results then. Better.
I think the visual nature as well. Just thinking then, I've sort of said about it with the colours and stuff, but we can quite easily talk about numbers and tax and that sort of stuff.
Get a bit too detailed sometimes.
Yeah, especially me. But because I enjoy the technical financial planning side of it as well, and getting into the detail. But like I say, for a lot of people and a lot of clients, that's not necessarily what they want, or the numbers can get a bit confusing. But actually, just having something that you can see and it's there, it's visual, it's not complicated, it's simple.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in that as well. So I think that's a good delve into goals. I think we've probably covered off, nice mix.
Well done.
Kids, houses,
Swimming.
time and swimming, losing weight. I think that's a good roundup. So we've covered off goals, we've covered off trigger points in the last one, we've done an introduction. So the podcast is getting there. We're still finding our feet a little bit, I think. But hopefully people are finding it useful, and we'll be just keeping an eye out for the next episode. It may be me, maybe Steve. We've had a couple of people reach out already who would like to come in as a guest on the podcast. So looking forward to getting some of those in the diary as well. But until the next one, that's us.
Right. You've been here. I've been Steve.
Yes. I don't know how long that was.
There's nothing going on with this camera.